the International Space Station. Well, they can't tell, right? No one can tell where we are. Might as well. I mean, this is how the space station looks.
Yeah, you got the artificial gravity holding everything down.
We're just spinning really quickly, so it feels. So we should probably say hi to everyone and assume they've joined. And just give everyone a minute. Say, hey, how are you? What's happening? How are you, James?
I'm very good, thank you. I haven't had a holiday too far ago. I went to Newcastle, though. Nowhere so far as you, though.
Newcastle.
You know, Newcastle's actually really quite destination. Nice. It's a underrated destination that people don't visit very often from Sydney because they think Sydney is just so much better. But actually, Newcastle is quite lovely. It is the second biggest city in New South Wales. Did you know that? And you know how many times smaller it is than Sydney as well?
Several. Yeah.
You didn't know that?
Yes.
David? Yeah.
I did. I lived there for a year.
Singleton.
Yeah. The gateway to Singleton. Yep.
It's 10 times smaller. But you used to live there, do you?
Yeah. Well, I lived in Toronto for a year and then moved back to Australia and came back to Newcastle for 12 months-ish. And then went to Byron Bay for about 18 months and then back to Brisbane now. So yeah, I was a Novocastrian. So yeah, I even got the word right. Novocastrian for a year. You can tell. Yeah.
It did seem really quite a lovely place to live. Plenty of sea, plenty of beaches, no shortage of water everywhere. And the city.
But that was just because it rained a lot, right?
Yeah. What's that, Richard?
That was just because it rained a lot.
Oh, well, I don't know where it's not. Where I've been for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, we should ask people to say hi in the chat. I think we should probably. Oh, we're only 7.
Oh, all right.
Let's see.
Oh, we've got echo happening. Who's re-streaming their Twitch stream?
Not me.
Is anyone there? Oh, look. I think
Mr. Smith, Francis.
Our usual friends. Francis.
Francis says, "Moi."
From overseas. That's dedication to the alt.net. Very good. I think we've got a lot of our regulars here. And new people as well. Lord Teaspoon.
Ahoy, Mr. Teaspoon, ahoy. Mr. Glav is not here. Good to know. It's his body double, the one that does all the stunt work. All right, James, should we be like official and stuff and kick things off, or do we want to just keep talking crap for a few more minutes? And
maybe we should start. We're 7:06. I guess we should consider starting. Yes. Welcome to the Sydney alt.net. Hooray! So today we have Damo telling us about all things to do with GitHub, but especially the most interesting bits, which are the new bits. So the actions and that sort of stuff. So coming up soon. Yeah. Also, we have the competition. So listen closely. We've got 2 questions to give away the JetBrain licenses. So I'll note down the questions and ask you at the end. So do stay to the end. And you will get to win any of the JetBrain licenses, and that's the usual stuff. What else we got, Richard, for today?
NDC Sydney program has been announced. There are a couple of clowns speaking there, so if you want to come along and enjoy the chaos and the show, that is an in-person conference, which is going to be great. So first time since 2019, I think, was the last in-person one for NDC Sydney. So for those of you in ye olde Sydney town, even those in Newcastle, New South Wales, 2nd largest city, and Wollongong, New South Wales, 3rd largest city, and even Orange and Dapto, wherever you happen to be, feel free to come along. Tickets available at ndcsydney.com creative in October, so should be fun. That was a great promo, wasn't it? It's fantastic.
It was reasonable.
I can tell by the reaction. Everyone's like, yes. Francis has to leave for an interview. Nice. Well, I hope you get the job, Francis.
Oh, no, you're going to avoid the quiz. You have to answer early. So you have to just put in your answer before you know the question.
Actually, it's like Jeopardy. We give you the answer. You got to guess the question. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
So we will, as usual, surface questions for Damos. So if anyone has any questions, stick it in chat, and we'll interrupt Damos' wise words and other things with whatever questions you have, and he'll be able to answer, I'm sure, as we go. And he's from GitHub, so we're in luck to get just the right speaker for the topic. So you ready to go?
I am. Yeah.
All right, we'll stop talking and leave the show to you.
Don't we have to count it down or something, and then because being professional and stuff that we are.
We need some music. We like that used to have in-person conferences.
We do those like little 2-minute countdown intro videos.
Yeah, that's right. We put like some screensaver thing on the background.
We should shut up and just actually let Damian talk.
That's way too much prep, I think.
Yeah. All right, we'll hand over to you. I mean, best to introduce you.
There we go. Francis has a solution. His friend's son does beatboxing, so next month. Right?
Next time we'll get it recorded.
Yep. Well, hi everyone. So first thing I'm going to do is apologize because I am a little bit sick. I don't have the spicy cough, but I have another cough. So periodically I'll try to mute myself as I cough a little bit. So yeah, apologies for that if it's going to assault your ears halfway through this presentation. But with that said, with my apology out of the way, it's a great way to start a session. I'm going to talk to you today about a lot of the stuff with GitHub. So as Richard and James mentioned, I work for GitHub. I worked for Microsoft for about 4 years before I worked for GitHub. I've been at GitHub for about a year and a little bit now. A year and a month, actually, almost to the day. And then before that, thanks. We call it a Hubiversary. There's a whole thing.
Of course we do.
Of course we do. It's when your yearly allowances come back too, so I can do some more L&D, some more learning and development stuff. Anyway, this is very easy to get on tangents on this show. Yeah, so
it's a gift.
It is a gift. Before Microsoft does Octopus Deploy as well for about 4 years there too. So I've been doing DevOps stuff for around 10 years. And if you talk about just general software process, all of the alt.chat tangent stuff, then yeah, I've been doing that for about 10 to 15 years as well. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about now is not kind of down in the weeds code, although we will touch a bit of that. But it's to do with the whole outer loop of DevOps itself. So idea all the way through to production, and then learning from what's in production and getting those ideas back into your planning. And then also the inner loop that we don't talk about quite as much in DevOps circles, which is the how do we actually implement stuff quickly and get this fast inner loop with great feedback about whether the code we've written is the right code and things like that. So we're going to talk about that too. And to do so, we're going to talk about a few different features. As James mentioned, a lot of these are quite new features. Some of them are about to go GA as well. Some of them are GA, generally available, which means it's just a supported thing rather than a beta or a preview. And so we're going to talk about some of them. If you have any questions, please just put it in the chat. I'm kind of watching the chat as well, so I can answer questions as they go. But Richard and James, feel free to surface stuff if I'm if I'm otherwise occupied. And then if you have any questions at any point, you can always catch me at Damo Visa. So that's my handle for Twitter and GitHub and TikTok if you really want to reply to me there, and a few other things too. So that's the best way to get hold of me. All right, so if you've been to a DevOps/process talk, you've almost certainly seen a slide that looks like this, which is the the infinity symbol of how we write code, how we engineer our products and get something from an idea to building it to shipping it and then learning what's in production and then coming back to our idea. And this is what we kind of call the outer loop. This is the process around which we deliver an idea into production as working software, hopefully. Now, the idea behind DevOps is to do that little cycle as quickly as possible, but as safely as possible. And the learning part is just as important as the rest of it. It's learning whether something is actually valuable. So the idea is really not to ship features or ship code into production. The idea is to ship valuable stuff into production, which is where the learning stuff comes in as well. And if you can do this fast enough, then you can learn as you develop. You can do things like put everything you do behind feature flags, make it available for a couple of people at a time to work out whether it's actually valuable to them. You can do experiment-driven development or hypothesis-driven development, where you think something is going to improve your customers' lives, but it's not until it's in production and they're using it that you can look at those metrics and decide, yes, actually, that hypothesis we had that this was going to improve things is actually true. We're going to work that out. There's a few ways you can do that. We do it all the time at GitHub. We put everything behind feature flags. There's a huge number of feature flags. And we have people, so some of the features we're going to show now, people have been using them and companies have been using them for up to a year in production in their real systems before it's tuned enough that we're willing to kind of give it to the public as a generally available product. Anyway, so this is the outer loop, the idea of, or the plan, kind of the process of getting from idea into production and then learning what's in production. The inner loop is just kind of this bit, right, where we are building our code, we're writing our code. How quickly can we do that? How quickly can we do our daily work? So we might have picked up a work item if you're using Scrum, or a task or an issue or something, and you're doing that work. How quickly can you actually get up to speed and debug and work out whether your tests are failing, and if they're failing, why they're failing, and how quickly can you switch tasks to review somebody else's pull request or review the code that somebody else has done, or show another developer the work that you're doing even if they're not in the same room as you. So this inner loop of being able to be productive is really important as well for getting your ideas out the door. So there's a few things in GitHub that can help with that, but just generally a few processes that are good for this kind of thing as well. So I'm going to show you a couple of things around that. So the idea behind GitHub these days is originally it kind of started as a way to host your Git repository on a server, and it's migrated very much to trying to encompass most of this. The learning stuff is still a little bit out of scope for what we do. Once it's in production, it's kind of your problem. But we can talk to third-party services that can do that kind of work, and we can help you discuss with your communities about what stuff is working and what stuff isn't. What we're not doing is adding monitoring and things like that. But what we're trying to do is to be a fully integrated platform. So from idea all the way into production. So to do that, having the whole system being collaborative and developer focused, and automated as much as possible. So everything from idea to production in a collaborative way across your teams. So not just your dev teams, but across your project management teams, across your communities who are using your applications and your software, your ops teams, your security teams, all of that stuff, trying to integrate that as much as possible. Right. So how often do you remove the feature flags? We tend to make the feature flags permanent feature flags. So our flags can be flagged as fully rolled out, and everybody has this feature now. Ones that don't get rolled out to everyone quite often just stick around and nobody has them, that nobody does anything with them anymore. I'm not sure what the process is for removing them, if I'm perfectly honest. If I do a search across our feature flags using our staff tools, my assumption would be there's not a great process for removing them. There's a huge number of feature flags in there. And I don't know whether many of them, or often they're used anymore. But that's a really good point. If you have a ton of feature flags, it's probably a good idea to have have a process for removing those flags, or at least coming back and removing the code, especially that's going to be triggered by that flag. There's another talk that I've done in the past about feature flags, and it talks about a company called I'm going to forget it now. Knight Capital. If any of you have heard that story, yeah. Richard's nodding his head. Long story short, feature flag that had not been used for a very long time. It got turned on again, and this share trading platform lost $440 million in about 45 minutes before they could turn the system back off, or just turn it off. So, yeah, it can cause big problems. And it was really because there was a chunk of code that hadn't been executed for a long time or something along those lines. And
yeah, they reused the flag for something else and then didn't realize it was, so when they turned it on, it triggered old code that just went berserk.
There we go.
It was great.
Yeah, great story. A good warning story. Yeah, I mean, if you can't be a model for others, you can be a warning. Is there a list of all these flags? So no, the flags are internal. However, if you go to GitHub, I can show you this in a sec. We often make these available to individuals as like a public feature flag. So if you are logged into GitHub and you click on your, actually, maybe I can just drag this across. Give me a sec. So you all know what I'm talking about. If I drag this across, there we go. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Enough. If you click on your profile photo, there's feature preview in here. And if you click on feature preview, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I'm pretty sure I've got access to some flags that I'm not allowed to show you. But if you click on feature preview, it'll give you a window saying which ones of these features do you want to turn on. So those are the ones that we make available to the public. But there are hundreds under the covers. And the reason we do that is it means that we can keep the applications, keep development flowing without necessarily interrupting production readiness. So we could have half-finished code that absolutely doesn't do what it's supposed to do yet in the production code base behind a feature flag that is just not turned on. So nobody will ever see that because, all right, glad. So what I meant was, do all GitHub employees have a place they can go to understand all of the feature flags available for an internal thing? And the answer is not really. The engineering teams certainly have access to the feature flag platform either via an internal tool that we use, or there's also a terminal and some chatbots and things like that. But those flags are named in a way that feature team knows what they are and how they find them. In terms of preventing a feature flag being forgotten, that might be an issue up to the team. They're generally named in a way that you know what they are and you can know where to find them. It's not just a single piece of text either. When you click into a feature flag, it gives you a description of what it is and when you should use it and when you should not use it, and all of that stuff as well. So there's like a database of these things behind the scenes, and then the teams,
You're not sorry to derail it, Glav.
That's all right. I like derailing questions. It's much more interesting than just showing demos that are pre-prepared. But speaking of these features, the ones that I want to show you today, there's 3 of them. So there's GitHub issues, and you may have seen GitHub projects spoken about a little bit as well. So issues and projects is all part of this planning and tracking set of features that we have. We're going to look at Codespaces and some surrounding things around Codespaces. And inside the Codespace, simply because I was specifically asked, we're going to have a little look at Copilot. That's where the questions, I may not be able to answer some of them, apart from pointing people at the FAQ that's on the page. But we will look at it, and I can explain a little bit about how it works if you like to. And then we're going to look at GitHub Actions. Luckily, you're not going to sit there. You're not going to be able to watch me write any YAML. That's already done, but we can walk through how GitHub Actions works and what it's good for. Cool. All right. And then after that, after all of those slides, we are not going to do any more slides. So what I want to do, yay, no more slides. What I would really like to do is skip to demos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to try and share.
Producer James is ready.
I'm ready.
Window. I think this is the window. Excuse me.
Go.
Okay.
Oh, giddy up.
How's the zoom level for that?
Old man eyes can read that, so that's good.
Old man eyes. Okay. Might need to zoom out once or twice because we're mobile first, and so things can disappear off the screen potentially. So this is my fancy web application. If you want to actually do this yourself, this is generated from one from my boss, Martin Woodward, .NET Web. So if you want to just create your own version of this and make the same mistakes that I have on the way through, go for it. It's not a terribly interesting application. This is the production website, and it's got a little ASCII Mona saying .NET all the things to the .NET logo, which I think is still the .NET logo. So we have a production site and we also have a staging site, and they look the same at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the idea phase. We're going to start planning our work. And the way we generally do that is in issues. Excuse me. So we have a few issues. And an issue, for those not familiar, is a kind of a generic term for a thing that we need to worry about rather than an issue being a synonym for a bug. So an issue is just something that we want to track, some piece of work that we want to track in GitHub. So we do have a bug here. We've got a bug saying that saying should be randomized. And I can show you this. There's a number of these, but if I refresh it, it just gives me the same one, this .NET all the things every single time. So there's a bug in there. We want to add some login functionality for some reason. And then we want to update the title on the page. And I'm going to add some more as well, just to add that work. The issues part itself, excuse me, the issues part itself is a really rich way of kind of tracking the information you want. So let's say we've got this randomized saying issue, and we've got the description here saying, that the saying is the same all the time. This is not really very descriptive. So we want to put in some more information, probably a screenshot. So we've got, I'm just doing a screen grab here. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I'm just going to Control V, just going to paste into here, and it will upload the file. And then if we look at the preview, we can see we get that screenshot of what it is. So we can paste in images, we can paste in videos. We can also do that in here. If we can just drag and drop. Oh, there's a TikTok. We can basically add a lot of rich content. Now, this is just Markdown. And so we can obviously do things like this, and our preview, reflects that as well. So we get this nice rich way of doing it. One other thing that we can do in here, which is really powerful, is if we want to break this task down, we can use a task list. So this is not just straight Markdown. This is what we call GitHub flavored Markdown. So there's a few extra things you can do. So you can do, say, item 1 and item 2, and have that as a task list, so a list of things to do. And the benefit of doing a task list is that if we update that comment now, we scroll up, we should see in a sec, or maybe if I refresh, that we have 2 tasks listed. So we have a little bit of hierarchy going on here to say, look, there's 2 things that we need to do. I can say, oh, we've done the first one, and now we can see at the top, we've done 1 of 2 tasks. So we can kind of track how that looks. Even in our issues board here, we can see 1 of 2 tasks is done. Richard has opened an issue. Great. I forgot to close the issues. Make them private. Good stuff. That's all right. We can also add labels to it. So I've got a bug label. I might be able to say this is a good first issue, which is a great way of signaling to your communities, if you have an open source project, that this is a good one to pick up if they want to get started. I can also add it to a project. So we're going to look at projects in just a second. We can do milestones. We can even straight from here create a branch if we have right privileges to linked to this issue so that we can start working on it and then submit a pull request. And of course, subscriptions, things like that. We also have this tracking of everything that's happened to this issue as we go, and we can leave, again, rich content. Now, this rich content as well, there's a few things we've added lately. You can use mathematical notation using a library, which I can't remember the name of, but it uses the same kind of stuff as, wow, my memory's going really well today. What's the one where you write journal articles and it's impossible to actually use?
Latex.
What was that? Latex. Yeah. So it uses the same kind of language. There we go. Thank you, Lord Teaspoon. Latex.
There you go.
Yeah, so it uses the same rendering engine as that, I think. We also have the ability to do graphs, and that is using a technology that I've also forgotten. You'd think I'd have some notes or something, wouldn't you? So you can do things like flowcharts in there as well, which is really handy in that particular syntax. So we're kind of adding to the ways that you can add this rich content as well. There's plenty of stuff on docs about this as well. So docs.github.com can go through all of that stuff. All right, so we've got our issues. We've shown some task lists, and that's fine. We've got this list of issues here, but once you get a real project, you end up with just this gigantic list of stuff that's categorized maybe by labels. It's not really enough information to manage a project. So what I'm going to show you now is the new projects. Mermaid graphs is, thank you, Roaming Hen. This is great. This is a team effort. Mermaid graphs, or Mermaid is the language, for the graphing tool. So I already have a project linked here, which I did for NDC Melbourne. Let's just unlink that. And this is just a link because the projects themselves are at the org level rather than at the repository level. So you have issues in your repository, but you may want a project or a way of looking at that project that spans across a number of repositories. Let's say you have a microservices application and each microservice is in a different repository. Having a single project that just looks at one repo isn't really going to give you a view of what you want. So when you add a project, you can add one which is already exists, or you can go to the organization. So this is my Damo Visa Inc. organization, and under projects there, I can create a new one or choose an existing one. So let's create a new one. And I'm going to start this from scratch. We can choose a table view or a board view from scratch. And of course, we can change these as we go. It's incredibly flexible. Or you can do something like give me a team backlog, and it will pre-populate it and pre-configure it in a way that it thinks that you might like. But I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to create that, and we get basically what looks like a spreadsheet. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit for this. There's a kind of running joke, I guess. It's not really a joke inside the projects team, which is that the competitor for any software application is a spreadsheet. I know Richard's been around the block for long enough to have worked with plenty of companies who run their entire business from a spreadsheet, right?
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. Yeah. I mean, I worked for a company at one point that hit the 2 gig per Excel document spreadsheet limit. And it caused them a lot of pain because now they had 2 spreadsheets for their company.
That's what 64-bit Excel's for.
Yeah, that's right. So like this is one of the guiding principles, right? We want to see our stuff in a table. So this is kind of the default view of what we see. To add an issue, we can either just start typing, a new thing we want to track and press enter, and that'll become what we call a draft issue. So we can track that. We can grab some information. We can edit this and say, this is also rich. So this is pretty fully featured. We can do most stuff here. And if we want to actually turn it into an issue, we can convert to an issue, choose the repository it's going to go to, and do that. But we've got teams inside GitHub who use these projects and don't do anything beyond draft issues because they don't actually need an issue in a repository for it. They just need a way to track that work. The other way, though, that you might want to add them is if you hit hash, which is kind of our universal symbol for an issue or a pull request ID. And you can choose .NET Web or any of the repositories that we've got. Let's just do .NET Web, and then we can just add our issues here. This is where we've worked pretty hard to make this keyboard friendly as well. So I tend to do this with a keyboard. So I'm just going to hit enter a few times and add all these open issues. And then I've got a bunch of closed ones from previous demos. Drag my columns around. We could sort these ascending, descending. We can choose the assignees. We can add other columns as well. So maybe I want labels. Linked pull requests is really handy too. It means that if somebody's looking at that, they can see somebody's already done some work and they can just click straight into that pull request to see what it is. I don't have any of those, so I'm just going to leave that. Status is probably pretty important too, but that's not set for any of these. So I'm just going to do to do for all of these. And let's just do in progress for the login functionality. But in a real project, I probably want something, a bit more than just this, right? So I might want to add a new field, which is my estimate, and that is of type number. And so I can add an estimate column, and let's just give that some random values, which is what estimates are anyway. That's a different talk. So estimates, maybe I want a new field, which is like the team that has to deal with it. And then we can do like a front end team, our, back end.
Oh, horizontal splitting.
PM, something like that.
In between team,
You forgot the database team that says no to everything.
Yeah, I'm not about to dictate what you do in your organization, but yeah, you could do those, and obviously you get your drop downs, which is kind of cool. But what you can do now is start grouping and sorting and filtering. So maybe I want to filter by just the items that are to do. So it'll get rid of that in progress one. Or maybe I want to group by, and you can do this as well. There's kind of a canvas, so Control K, and then I want to say group by status. And now they're grouped in a nice kind of to-do ones here, in progress ones there. You might want to, I don't know, what else can we do? Filter, view, sort, all that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, so that's cool. We got our backlog. Let's call it that. The other type that you want to add, or you might want to add, is a new field for new field for an iteration. So originally, this wasn't actually going to be a first-class citizen of issues and projects. It was proposed, but the team was thinking at the time that we didn't want to dictate that everybody had to use iterations in a classical way. But it turns out almost every team wants some form of iterations. And if you don't want it, that's fine. You just don't add the iteration field. But this is a little bit more involved. So this one will start on today. We'll say 2-week duration. Yeah, that's fine. Save and create. And so that'll create a sprint field. And we have sprint 1 with our dates, which is the current sprint, and sprint 2, sprint 3. So if we add a few of these to sprint 1, and you notice that even this draft issue, I can add any of these except for labels because they are an issue specific thing, different labels for different repositories. But I can assign people, I can change the teams and so on. So let's just add a bunch of these to sprint 1. We'll make that sprint 2, and then that can be sprint 3. I'm actually going to change Richard's thing here. Oh, sorry, not Richard's thing. Richard added a different one. I'm going to change my one to say change background. I tend to use that one. Right, that's a draft issue, but again, if I want to make that a real one, I can say make that a real issue in the .NET Web repository, and now it's a real issue. So quite cool. One thing that is really useful here is grouping by sprint, so you can see kind of what's going ahead. This will do for me, so I'm just going to save these changes, and that's fine. We've got our backlog view. We can filter it. We can say, we can have a separate view for like the front end team that only looks at things that have this front end team in there. Or even ones where you can say, so filter by assignees, and then you can say me. So just give me my ones. So you can have your own board like that, or current sprint or something like that. Pretty handy. But let's say we want a new view, but this time we want a board layout. So this is a really good way of saying filter by sprint, current sprint, and now this is our sprint backlog. Our sprint board, sorry. So these are kind of the two ones. We have our backlog and our sprint board, but pretty much everybody sets these ones up, right? And of course, you get all what you'd expect, like changing background colors, dragging from one to another. You can change what appears on these as well. So the fields that are visible, you can say, I want the labels in there, and I want, I don't know, repository, maybe the estimate or the team that needs to go in there or something like that. And it'll surface those in this picture as well. So pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's really, really flexible. There's a lot in here. So yeah, you can play with this however you want. These are available for everybody. It's a public beta at the moment. You don't have to sign up or anything. If you go to projects for your org, you can just start using it, I believe. And yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there. A couple of things that I want to show as well, excuse me, in settings, we can do descriptions and readmes and so on, but all of our custom fields we can edit here. So if I wanted to add like a blocked status, I can do that, and that's part of my project now. So I can change the statuses that are there. I can add or remove, delete any fields. Sprints is a little bit more. I can add a new iteration, or I can do things like change a new iteration. Sorry, add a new iteration that's a different duration. I can do something like, what can I do? I can change insert a break. Like if there's a week off, I can say it's actually a week or 2 weeks here. I can change the name of a sprint. I can change the dates of a sprint if I want to customize it like that. So you can do a ton of stuff in here. And then of course change all your single selects and things like that.
Can you do
the other one?
I see a chart thing, I was wondering.
There is an insights one which you may not see if you look in your own. I don't think this is a secret, at least I hope not, because we're streaming this. But we are doing work around charting for this. So by default, you get a burn up chart, but you can create a new one that you can configure, kind of however you want. So a bar chart, which is by, what's a good x-axis? I don't know. Assignees. So each person grouped by count of sum of estimate. And then you can see, for each person, what's the sum of their estimates, how much work are they working on at the time. And this is live data. So, however, this is probably not available when you have a look. There is work going on for that as well. The other thing that there's work going on for is workflows. Now, some of these are available right now. So all of these default workflows. This is just a nice kind of way of linking a project to an issue itself, or a project to the repositories that those issues belong to. Because you can have an issue in multiple projects, you may not necessarily want to mark something as done in a project just because the issue is done in that repository. So there is that little bit of disconnect. This can help you with that disconnect a little bit. So by default, when an item is closed, so an issue or pull request is dragged to the closed column, is actually closed in the repository, it will set the status in this project to done. Or when a pull request is merged, it'll set the status to done. There is some work coming for custom ones as well. So we should be able to do some customizing around this. You can always use I think it's the GraphQL API in GitHub to talk to projects as well. So you could write your own GitHub Actions to, run certain behaviors when stuff happens. So there is some automation and workflows, and there's some more coming. Cool. All right, so let's move to the next bit, which is, we've done our planning. We've got these projects and things like that. Let's say we want to change the background color. That's a nice, easy one. So let's open that issue in a new tab. And then I'm just going to create a branch for this issue to say I want to do that work. So let's create a branch. Here we go, branch name. We can check out locally or open that branch with GitHub Desktop if we're using GitHub Desktop. I'm just going to do it locally, so just in the browser. It'll tell me how to actually get that if I'm using Git locally. But I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to go purely in the web. So let's go to code. 35, change background color. So this is the branch that I was using before. It says it's up to date with main. It's just a background color change, so I don't really need anything fancy. I could probably just go to the CSS in there and edit it directly in the browser, but instead I'm going to do the coolest thing I think GitHub does right now, which is use the web-based editor and just press the dot or the full stop button or the period or whatever, wherever you come from. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up VS Code essentially in my browser. So if you haven't seen this, this is usually where people say, hang on, what did you just do? I use this or Codespaces almost exclusively now. I think I've maybe opened a Visual Studio Code on my local machine, twice in the last 6 months. I think I've cloned a repository locally. The last time I did it was probably 12 months ago. And you'll see why in a second. This is pretty much almost fully fledged VS Code. It's just running in my browser. There's a few things that it can't do, which I'll show you in a sec, but it can do what we want it to do. So right down here, if you look at the footer here, you can see we're on that branch. On the left, you can see we're editing on GitHub. So if you can't see those very clearly, it's just kind of an indicator on the footer to show you where you are at the moment. So we're editing directly on GitHub. So I don't have a local clone. And we're in this branch. So any changes I make and commit, they're going to commit to that branch on github.com. So let's change the background color. I already know where that lives, I think, somewhere down here. And you'll see that we have, can anyone see like a purpley color label? I don't know. Background, green, button. It's down the bottom somewhere. Let's just change something else. So date time. All right. I'm just going to assume it's in label. Here we go. So this color here, you can see we get what we normally get with Visual Studio Code, which is a nice little color picker. Let's say, there we go. It's going to be blue. You know what? I want to change the right thing. Let's just see what that is. CLI example. Great. CLI example. Undo. CLI example is here. Hey, there we go. There it is. So let's choose a nice kind of deep blue for that background. We'll save it, and we can see over in our source control tab, we've got that change. I can commit and make that change. I want to show you the things that it can't do right now. So because we're in a web editor, the main reason it can't do this is because there's no server behind the scenes here. It's given us Visual Studio Code. All of the code is JavaScript. It's just running in our browser right now, right? So I can't debug. So I can't run and debug this. If I hit the shortcut for the terminal, there's no terminal because there's no file system. There's nothing that I'm actually working on. So I can't do anything on the terminal, and I can't debug. The other thing I can't do is run some extensions. So there are plenty of extensions I can run. You can see all of these are installed. Codespaces is installed, pull requests and issues is obviously installed by default. That's how this is working. Themes, even VS Live Share, Visual Studio Live Share. So I could run a live sharing session purely from my browser with somebody on the other side of the world, and we could pair program without either of us having the code locally at all. So that's kind of cool, and all for free, I believe. But there's some things that you can't do. So some extensions you can't do. So there's a bunch of these linting ones. You can see the little warning. So it says, this is not available in Visual Studio Code for the web. And that's because it needs some compute behind the scenes. It needs something to do the work. So those are your restrictions. I'm just going to make this change, color, and this fixes 35. I'm going to commit that directly. There we go. And so that's committed to the branch. If I wanted to, let's just click on here and say go to repository. You'll see that branch here, that changed background color. That's the thing that I changed. Excuse me. And I can submit a pull request right from the web there if I want, or I can do it from VS Code, from the web editor. Just this little button here, create pull request. Or if I go down to GitHub, I can hit create pull request as well. I can also start my work here too. So I could just click on that little arrow and it will start working on that issue, and it will check out a topic branch or a feature branch. So it'll do all of that for me right from VS Code if I want to. But I'm just going to say create a pull request, change background color. Yeah, merging into main. That's great. We'll create it. And now we can see right now we've got our pull request. We can see the files that have changed, and we get that full UI. So we've kind of done this work without really leaving the browser at all. One thing that's really cool about this is if I go to the pull requests tab now, and I open my or somebody else's pull request, and then I hit dot, it's going to open up the web editor as well. If I do it again, it's going to open the web editor as well. But what it will do is it'll open it up in the context of that pull request. So we're talking before about that inner loop of being able to switch contexts to, review a pull request or something like that. This is a great way of doing it. It means that it's just spinning up a VS Code instance that's already in the context of that person's work. And you can see all the changes they made. You can browse through their commits if you want, have a look at the commit messages and the files that changed each time, see the diff between them, and then comment, create merge commits. You can do all of that work from inside the browser, which is quite cool. Now, of course, you can't debug. So that's where Codespaces comes in. So let me just undo that because I shouldn't. I'm just going to open a repository again. So if I wanted to do this in a Codespace, I'll show you how to do that now. The difference with a Codespace is it's the same Visual Studio Code, except there is a machine running behind the scenes. So a Codespace is basically a developer machine that's set up specifically for the repository or the project or the work that you're doing right now. Now, Codespaces is not free. There is no free offering at the moment. So to do this, somebody needs to pay for it, unless you work at GitHub, and then you can kind of turn the feature flag, and ultimately Satya pays for it. So to do that, there's a few ways I can do it. In here, I can say, let's say I wanted to debug. I could say I want to continue working on create a new Codespace. So that's one of the options. Same thing with the terminal. To use the terminal, I need to continue an environment that can run code like a Codespace or local. So I can continue working on a Codespace and create it that way. But usually people will do it from the web. So let's actually go back to our main branch. And I'm going to create a new Codespace by clicking on code. Normally you'd have it on the local tab. But if you have Codespaces enabled, you can turn it on here, or click on Codespaces, use one of the existing ones, or create a new Codespace. So just to show you, by the way, how fast Codespaces are, I'm not going to use an existing one. I'm going to use a brand new one, and I'm going to spin it up, and we'll watch it start. This is spinning up a brand new machine, which has already checked out this code and done that work. We can choose the size of it as well. So by default, I've got it set to use a 2-core 4-gig machine, which might sound small for a developer machine, but remember, it's focused on this code. So you don't have Outlook pinging you or Teams pinging you or whatever else. It's just VS Code and what it needs. Or I can configure it specifically and choose what I want. It'll be paid for by Damo Visa Inc., which is good information to know. You can choose where roughly it is in the world. So it'll pick the closest one to you by default, and then you can choose the size. So I'm going to choose a 2-core because I don't want to do any smoke and mirrors about how fast this thing is. And I'm going to create a code space. The question is, a couple of questions. Can GitHub sponsor Codespace licenses for this meetup? The short answer is no. Codespaces are paid by
it's compute.
time. It's compute time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are. Sorry,
we can probably give everyone a free 0 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, so what I can say is that we are looking at ways to give Codespaces to people for free, basically. I'm involved in some of those conversations about how they're doing that, but we want to do a similar thing, I guess, to some of the other features. Like Actions is also compute, as an example, but we don't want to just let everybody run riot with Actions because you end up with just being a crypto mining company. Same kind of thing with Codespaces. We don't want to just give everybody unlimited machines. There's got to be a way of doing it correctly. So here you go. You saw how long that took. And so I could start doing that work right now. So I can, favicon is probably not the best thing to change, but you can see I can start changing that work. But this time I've got a terminal. So this terminal is in the context of the machine that I have that GitHub spun up for me. You can see down here where it said GitHub before, it now says Codespaces. I've got I have a terminal and I have my local machine that I can do work on. I can debug as well. Now, this is a .NET app. I'm not 100% sure it's just going to work straight out of the box, but hey, why don't I just hit play and see what happens? So this is using a container, which is the what we kind of nicknamed the kitchen sink container, but it's the default out of the box one. It has a ton of stuff on it. So if you look at, Node, the Node version, it's got Node on it, which I probably don't. I might need for this, but it's got like maybe not PHP. It'll have Ruby on it. It'll have Python on it. But I have a bunch of stuff that I probably don't need, but it's not bad for kind of getting me started. I can customize these, and I can also do another thing called pre-build. So pre-builds allows you to pre-create these templates for a new code space. And it means that rather than taking the number of seconds that this took, which is low because it's a small repository and doesn't have a lot of setup steps, it will pre-do all of that work for you. So for reference, the GitHub repository, so when you go to github.com, that is a mono repo. So everything is in a one repository. On disk, it's about 23 gig if you include the Git history, 11 gig of content in that repository, and a whole bunch of setup steps. Like we have processes that are running for databases and for a whole lot of other stuff. We use Codespaces internally exclusively, so people don't have their own dev machines beyond something to connect to a Codespace. And the startup time went from about 45 minutes with Codespaces to about 10 seconds with pre-builds.
That's pretty good.
So starting from scratch, brand new Codespace, 10 seconds, and you can start coding with a working machine that is already set up for your environment. Okay. All right. I'm just going to stop that because I don't think it's working. I did want to show you one more thing for that other piece of work that we're going to do. And I'm not going to bother checking out that that piece of code or anything like that. I'm just going to go and change the code directly. This is the one where we saw it was not, it wasn't, come on. It was just giving the first of these messages. So you can see that the message, it's just picking that first one. What I actually want it to do is randomize the message that came through. So to do that, I'm going to install Copilot. Copilot is now GA, so it's now generally available. And you need to pay for it. So it's $10 a month or $100 a year, I think it is. And right now it's individual licenses. So it's a license for you and only you can pay for it. Enterprise paid licenses are coming soon, but there's no real restriction on what you can use it for. It's just you have a Copilot license for your account and then you can use it for that. So whether you're working on work stuff or private stuff, yeah, it can be either. So it's just activating Copilot for me, hopefully. Excuse me. Come on.
I'll avoid asking any controversial questions on that one.
You can ask some questions. I can't guarantee I'll answer them. That's all. So it's, that's annoying that it's not even doing Copilot. So you know what I'm going to do to show you this? I'm going to show you a different feature, another feature. You can actually open a code space via VS Code on your local machine. So I'm going to do that because I know I have Copilot installed, and that's just ruined my picture of what I'm showing you. And it's also going to stop me from sharing it, isn't it? Because I'm sharing the
No, you should be able to just, did you share the screen or window?
I shared the window. Let me, you know what? I'm just going to refresh the Copilot again. Yeah, so I've got it in VS Code, but I'm sharing the window. So my Chrome window. So give me a sec. I'm just going to see if this does open Copilot. No. Installing, doing extensions. Turn on my Copilot, pleise. Hey, there he is. Here he is. There's my little Copilot dude. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen Copilot, it's not magic. It's an AI trained model. It feels like magic sometimes, but it's an AI model built on Codex from OpenAI. And so all it does is it has a model that understands what code looks like essentially, and it looks for patterns and tries to understand what you're trying to do. So it's always synthesizing code based on its model and based on what it can see in your code base. It's not going and copying and pasting from Stack Overflow or from GitHub repositories. It's synthesizing code every time. There is even a tool that we have as part of the product which looks to see whether the suggestion that it's about to give you is a match, ignoring white space for anything that exists in publicly available code. And if so, it won't give you that suggestion. So we try pretty hard to make sure it's not giving you anything that somebody else owns. So it's already decided it's going to suggest message equals hello world, which, I mean, that's not a bad first guess for not really having any context about what I want to do. But what I actually want to do is message. Sorry, I want to set a random message. And then that's not right. From the model messages. But it would be much easier if I just kind of typed that myself, probably. But let's say I forgot how to do randomize in .NET. That's not bad. That's correct, I think.
You did seed your random number generator, so it's not quite right. But...
Yeah, it didn't seed it, no. But, you know,
oh, here we go.
See it? No. So there is I've had to change my shortcut keys and stuff to demo some other stuff, but you can also do a control enter and it'll tell you all of the things that it thinks is a good response, like a good answer. So it'll give you 10 solutions. These all seem to be pretty much the same. There you go. That's another one. Yeah, so none of those are a great solution. But I mean, it kind of gave me what I wanted. If I wanted to do something like message 1 equals model messages And let's say I was doing some kind of boilerplate stuff. You can see it's worked out what I'm doing a little bit. So when you're doing a lot of boilerplate stuff, especially writing tests and things like that, you've written one test to test, one extreme, you're writing another test to write, the other extreme. It's pretty good at guessing that other one. So it's pretty good for this, boilerplate. Great for, if you're writing a class that just does 4 methods to, add, insert, search, and whatever from a database, and then you have a new object for it, it'll just go, oh, here, that's the thing that you wanted. So that's pretty handy. Yeah, so that's kind of what Copilot is. When you're working on a larger code base, you can find it's just like almost like a mind-reading autocomplete in a lot of cases. And it's easy to just kind of ignore it and keep typing, but then you'll find that it's writing the rest of the line for you. All of our demos kind of do things like, I don't know, right, here's Buzz. Is this funny? Oh, yeah, okay, cool, thanks. I guess because I'm not in a C# file, but you can do stuff like that, which is great for demos, but not necessarily fantastic for anything else.
You don't do all of that in day-to-day use?
I mean, I do.
A lot of this does, yeah.
Francis needs it for his interview, so that should be handy.
Yeah, exactly. The one that I did a TikTok about, which has got a lot of people talking about it, is what is it? Center div in my CSS. I'm like, there you go. Which is like, that's the limit of my front end dev. Is it's actually done a better job of when I did it on the video. It used auto margins and things last time, but it knows about Flexbox now, so that's great. Anyway, so realistically, talking about that inner loop, the things that we take for granted these days if you're on full VS, like autocomplete and IntelliSense and all those kind of things, you can think of Copilot as a bit more of an extension of that. It just understands your code a little bit better because it's built on that same kind of GPT-3, not magic, but feels a little bit like it, technology. And it looks at your code and it kind of understands what code looks like. It works across a whole bunch of languages. C# isn't even one of the officially kind of recommended ones. It'll work in it, that's fine, because there's plenty of C# code. But it's really good for things like Python and JavaScript and stuff like that. But yeah, does a pretty good job with .NET. All right. So that's the inner loop.
Is that just for people who, what happens with Visual Studio itself since .NET? Because they've got their own IntelliCode line computer and things.
Yeah, so I'm fairly sure, I think you can get Copilot working in other IDEs, I think.
Okay. But it's mainly built as a VS Code extension.
Yeah, so it's a VS Code extension. I might need to look that up. That seems like something I should know. Yeah, it'll understand TypeScript. In fact, in most languages, it'll be fine. So even if I say this is plain text, I don't know.
I crack a latex thing out.
Oh, that's disabled, I think. Wait. Should I?
Is this like going to Google and going, I feel lucky, and seeing what you land on?
Yeah. Yeah. So this isn't code, but it's still using.
David says VS22, not a problem with it, so that's good.
It's a very upbeat. It's good to see.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Maybe this is the thing where it's not looking for any.
Okay.
Maybe this is where it's not looking for any repeated text, and so some of the suggestions it was going to give it found in too many places, Richard, and that's why we're only getting positive.
What were the other suggestions again?
Yeah, let me see. No, this is not safe. All right, so yeah, you can see it just kind of understands how this stuff fits together. So it actually works reasonably well with plain text, even though that's not code. Yeah. Anyway, so pretty cool way of doing it. There we go. Using it in VS22, no problem. All right, so the last little bit, and I realize I'm already kind of over time. The last bit is what happens when we actually want to deploy the stuff and we want to build our application. We've got our code space. So hopefully we've got an environment where we can do our builds locally and run tests locally and things like that. But the whole CI/CD part is pretty important too. So let's just look at our pull request. And so this is where we change that background color. And I'm going to merge this. I'm just going to say, yeah, this is great. So this is going to merge that pull request. It's going to push it back into our main branch. And then I have a GitHub Actions workflow set up to do some CI/CD when I push to my main branch. I want to show you as well, if we look at this project, we can see that's been pushed over to the done column because I said it fixed that work. And we can see, hang on, change background color. I might need to refresh that. That's a bit weird. Oh, no, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. If I open that issue in a new tab, you can see a bit more information about what's gone on. I closed it as completed in that issue, so I can click through to that pull request. So I can click through that pull request. You can see the development work here. That's the linked pull request. If I went back to my project, actually, and said I want to see on this sprint board my linked pull requests, you can see it shows up right there. So you can click through directly from there. So you get, we've got this end-to-end kind of thing happening at the moment. If we jump to our action, you can see that this one has actually already continued. So this is my merge pull request. We did a pull request build as well. So when I submitted that pull request, we compiled it across, excuse me, Ubuntu, Windows, and Mac. So I'm surprised it took that long, to be perfectly honest. Apologies. So we've done what's called a matrix build and said build 3.1, 5, and 6 across Ubuntu, Windows, and Mac. And so it's ended up with 9 jobs because it's done this matrix build. So this is really good for making sure our library supports all the OSs and things that you want. So I've done a workflow to do that, but I've done this main CI/CD workflow, which I want to show you. So we did our build task. If we click into these, we can see everything that actually ran. We set up .NET Core, we did a build, .NET Publish. We uploaded an artifact. So the thing that we built, we uploaded it so we can have a look at it later. And then builds on Windows 3.1. Yeah, definitely.
Nice work, Ken. Nice work.
But excuse me. So then we deployed to a staging site. So you remember we changed that background color. That link is here for my benefit. And if I go to that link, you can see it's changed to blue. You can see production, which I'm going to drag over here, hasn't changed. So we're deployed to our staging site, but we haven't gone to production. It's waiting for a review to say, yes, this is okay, deploying to prod. So I'm just going to say, yeah, great. And approve and deploy that to prod. Excuse me. And then it'll kick off that deployment to production. But what does this actually look like? This definition is a workflow file. So it's a file that exists in our repository that's YAML, and it lives alongside the code, which means if somebody clones your repo, they have not just your code, but they also know how your code is built and deployed. Anything we want to keep secret, such as Azure publishing profile details, we can store in secrets in GitHub as well. And these are write-only encrypted variables that won't show up in your logs either. So if you echo them to the log in a script or something like that, they just won't show up. We know that they're secret. We can see, without going into too much detail about how this fits together, we can see that there's a name and then an on element. And inside that, we can name one or many different things that can trigger this workflow to run. So in this case, it'll run when there's a push to our main branch, but it'll also run on workflow dispatch. So workflow dispatch means I can click a button. Yes, Hunter2. If your password is Hunter2, you'll never get it back in the logs. So Workflow dispatch means that I can click a button and fire off a workflow. Repository dispatch is an event that means that somebody's hit an API endpoint, and it will give you the API endpoint. You can feed information into it as well. But there are a huge number of these events that can cause triggers. So things like pull requests, or people leaving a comment on an issue, or somebody forking your repository, or somebody labeling an issue. There's a huge number of these different events. So it's not just for CI/CD. You can use actions to kind of control anything in response to anything inside GitHub. Then we have our jobs that are named. They can run on Ubuntu, Windows, or Mac, or they can run on your own machines as well. So you can have self-hosted agents. And each job will by default run in parallel unless you have this needs keyword here. And then it will say, well, the staging build needs our, staging job needs our build job. And then we just have a bunch of steps. So if you're familiar with pretty much any other workflow engine or CI/CD platform, you'll know roughly how this works. Here's a bunch of steps. Here's how they work. You can use actions or you can use scripts. And you can also secure each environment like we saw happening here by saying, I've got production and prod, great. By setting setting rules. So on my production deployment, I have to review that before it will go to production, but you could put in a team or individual people. And I can also say, I don't have any branch protection rules, but I can also say, well, actually, I do have a branch protection rule to say that you can only deploy from protected branches. So ones that need a pull request to be able to write to. You can also do things like wait, an hour after deploying to staging if you want as well. You can also set secrets at environment levels, which means that you can always just say, I want to use the Azure Web App Publishing profile, but in staging, it'll have a different value than it does in production, which is really handy. Cool. All right, I kind of rushed through the action stuff because I realize I've gone on a bit long. But one thing I will say is the number of actions that are available to you is huge. So if we look at the actions, so to get there, you go to Marketplace Actions. Time of recording, 14,230. I think it was less than 14,000 last time I did this presentation a week or so ago. So there's a huge number of these. And there's like actions for everything that you could think of. If there's not, it's easy to write your own action. The easiest way is to find one that does something similar to what you want, like let's say deploying an Azure Web App. Scroll down and this link will usually take you to the repository. So every action you can find in that marketplace, the code is in an open repository that you can fork and do your own version if you just want to have a look to see how other people have done it. That's pretty handy too. All right. Have I taken up enough time? Everybody's Tuesday evenings. Yep. There you go. Yeah, a bunch of stuff.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yes. Yeah. It's always a challenge with these ones to skip, because I didn't talk about discussions. I didn't talk about half of the stuff in issues and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but hugely powerful. And the main point I want to get across, I suppose, is all the way from idea all the way into production. So it'll integrate relatively nicely with a lot of other tools, but you can also do all of that stuff inside GitHub as well. I wouldn't recommend necessarily moving tools if something is working for you, but the features are available for you here as well. Questions. All these features went on GitHub AE. I can't really comment on GitHub AE, unfortunately.
AE being...
that's actually its name, I believe. So GitHub AE was an offering which was, I think, hosted, or GitHub hosted isolated instances of GitHub. So the closest with AE would be GitHub Enterprise, which is github.com, but hosted by us, or GitHub Enterprise Server, which is GitHub hosted by you on your own infrastructure. GitHub AE was somewhere in between that, where we host it, but it's independent. But that plan is in flux, I think. I just don't know the details of AE at the moment. It's still a thing that we're going to deliver, I believe. So I just don't know any details. I'm sorry. Yeah. GitHub action, a GitHub opposite reaction. Yep, there is. It's the emojis. Every time you do a GitHub action, there's an emoji that pops up on somebody's issue just randomly. A reaction emoji. See, Lord Teaspoon, you could have just had that joke.
No, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't do it. It's too obvious.
Yeah. See, serious question. It was, yeah. That's probably a feature flag that we need to turn off there. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, Damo Visa is my GitHub handle and Twitter handle and all that sort of stuff.
Awesome.
Please reach out if you have questions.
Indeed. Damo, thanks heaps for popping your way through that last hour with us. Really appreciate it. But I should probably hand to James because he needs to ask questions and give away things to people. So, Mr. Teaspoon, make sure your hands are ready on the keyboard.
Yeah, everyone ready? I'll just thank Damian while everyone's waiting.
Oh, yeah, okay, we should do that.
That was really good. Lots of things I didn't know that I'll put to good use. All right, so for
basically, James is just going, I just wanted this session for myself.
Well, I mean, no point arranging a session that you don't want to attend, right, Richard? Have stuff that you're interested in. All right, so questions. So how do you bring up VS Code on a repo in your browser? Quick, everyone.
We want the correct spelling. Oh, Roaming Hen gets it.
Okay, I think you win.
I was going to say, surely there was a quicker way. Oh, that's a brutal question. That's I will have to remember that.
That's a harder question than I thought. There you go. Perfect. All right. Well, I think you win. So, Roaming Hen, send me a meetup message with your email address, and I'll send you through the license. And the next question, now let's go to this one. The next question is, what are two differences between Codespaces and VS Code in the browser? You need to have two to win.
And one of them being it's in the browser and one isn't, doesn't count.
Yeah, you need something to be a count. Do you pay
lots of extensions? Lots? I don't know about lots. Some.
All right. I guess Lord Teaspoon's first. We pay that.
Oh, do we have to? Do we have to give it away to?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to argue. There's a lot of extensions.
Yeah.
All right. I think Lord Teaspoon, you win again. So do send me your email just so I remember to send it to you. And this time, definitely use your license. Otherwise, JetBrain hassles me and says, like, how come no one's using their licenses? So please do make use of it. And sorry, everyone else who had good answers after that, like no terminal, etc., and compute and cost. They all seem very reasonable answers too.
Awesome.
All right, that's it for the questions. Now, if anyone's got something they want to hear about or would like to give a talk, please send us a message on Meetup or Twitter or whatever. And
it's a very August month next month, so we should definitely have something good. Did I just do that out loud and publicly? I shouldn't have done that.
What did you say, Richard? Sorry.
Nothing, never mind. Move on.
All right, moving on. All right, so thank you everyone for coming, and do let us know if you want to give a talk. And you can get in touch with Damo for more questions at his Twitter handle. All right. Thank you, everyone.
And Mr. Brady, thank you again. And don't forget, go get your NDC Sydney tickets so you can see more of the shenanigans. That'd be great.
I'll be there.
Thank you, everyone.
All
Bye.
right. Bye all. Quick, James, hit the hang up.